Okay, so let's dive in. There's this big headline swirling around recently, right? Involving global powers, trade, even the future of the U.S. dollar. We're going to unpack it today. There have been some pretty strong statements from a former U.S. president about tariffs hitting a major economic bloc, and, well, the reactions have been just as strong. Our mission here is to really distill what's being said, look at the claims underneath, the responses, and try to figure out, what's actually going on and what it might mean for all of us.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how this whole situation touches on these really fundamental questions. International trade, economic power, even the role of global currencies. We'll be looking at how one side is making these, let's say, very strong claims about protecting its economic standing,
Right.
while the other side is pushing back really firmly against what they clearly see as, well, overreach.
And the key players here are the U.S. and, of course, the BRICS group.
Exactly. Which, it's worth remembering, has grown quite a bit. It's not just Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa anymore. Now includes nations like Iran, Indonesia too. So it's a significant bloc.
Definitely. So let's unpack those initial statements first. We have this very direct quote from the former U.S. president. He said the U.S. would, and his words were, pretty soon, charge a 10% tariff on imports from BRICS countries.
Uh-huh. During a cabinet meeting, is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And he apparently said, quote, anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge pretty soon. If they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay a 10% tariff, and they won't be a member long.
Hmm.
I mean, that sounds remarkably clear, very assertive.
Oh, absolutely. It's unambiguous language. And it
Mm.
comes with the specific reasoning he laid out. He claimed, though, it's important to note, without presenting specific evidence at the time,
Right.
that the BRICS group was specifically set up to undermine the United States, and specifically its currency.
He actually said BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar, take it off as the standard. That was the quote, wasn't it?
That's it. He made it crystal clear he wouldn't let that happen. He even went so far as to say losing the dollar's reserve currency status.
Which is that, that crucial role it plays globally
right.
for trade, investments, central bank holdings.
Exactly, that pivotal role. He equated losing that to losing a war, a major world war, adding, we would not be the same country any longer. So that rhetoric, I mean, it really underlines the incredibly high stakes he associates with the dollar's global position.
But then the picture gets a bit more nuanced, doesn't it? Because while he publicly said this tariff was coming pretty soon, there wasn't like a specific date attached.
That date, correct.
And then critically, this source, described as someone familiar with the matter, added this layer.
Ah, yes. The anonymous source always adds a twist.
Right. And this source suggested that, well, hang on, a Trump administration would charge the tariff only if these countries adopted anti-American policies. So drawing a line between just general statements or membership and specific actions that are seen as detrimental, like things potentially discussed by BRICS leaders.
And that's a really significant point, isn't it? It suggests a kind of conditionality.
Yeah.
A trigger mechanism, maybe, beyond just, you're in the club, you pay the tariff. It shifts it towards a more targeted response based on actions. Meanwhile, you have BRICS itself. They just had their annual summit, and leaders there were, voicing criticisms, albeit perhaps indirectly, of existing U.S. military and trade policies.
So there's already tension there.
For sure. It shows this broader geopolitical stance they have. It's not just about currency, even if the former president frames it that way. BRICS nations often talk about bigger issues, too, like global governance, Western sanctions, wanting more multipolar institutions.
Which can definitely impact economic policy, yeah, but maybe isn't a direct currency war in the way he described it.
Yeah, exactly. It's more complex.
And the pushback on the tariff threat itself, it was, well, pretty immediate and quite forceful.
Lula, right, Brazil's president.
Yes, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. He just hosted the BRICS summit, and journalists asked him straight up about this tariff threat. His response was remarkably defiant. He apparently told them, the world does not want an emperor. Pretty direct.
Wow, okay. Strong words.
And then later, after a state visit from India's Prime Minister Modi, Lula basically doubled down. He said, we will not accept any complaints about the BRICS summit. We do not agree with the U.S. president insinuating he's going to put tariffs on BRICS countries.
So a very clear, very public rejection. No ambiguity there either.
At all, and then yielding no.
And this brings us to something really pivotal, something that genuinely challenges that core idea put forward by the former U.S. president about BRICS' main goal. Well, he claims they're set up to degenerate our dollar, right? But here's the thing. Brazil itself, the country whose leader just gave that strong rejection. Back in February, Brazil actually nixed plans for a common currency agenda during its BRICS presidency year.
Wait, really? They dropped the common currency idea?
They did, for their presidency year at least. And this isn't just some minor detail. It's a critical insight. It directly contradicts the premise that BRICS is this unified front actively trying to take down the dollar right now.
Huh. So it suggests maybe the group isn't quite the unified anti-dollar force he portrayed it as.
Exactly. It shows it's more a collection of nations, perhaps, with their own varied, sometimes diverging internal priorities and agendas. The real story here might not just be this clash of words, but maybe a fundamental misunderstanding, or perhaps even a strategic misrepresentation, of what BRICS is actually focused on economically at the moment.
That's fascinating. It has a whole other dimension.
It really does.
Yeah.
And if we sort of zoom out and connect this to the bigger picture, what we're seeing is like a snapshot of these ongoing tensions about economic dominance, about, the shifting sands of global alliances. You've got this dual narrative playing out. On one hand, the U.S. tariff threat, which, remember, that insider source hinted was conditional.
Tied to specific anti-American actions.
Right. And on the other hand, you have this very strong BRICS rejection, especially from Lula in Brazil. It really throws a spotlight on the high stakes around the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency, at least as perceived by the former U.S. president. And that contrasts so sharply with what BRICS countries like Brazil are actually doing, or in this case, not doing, like shelving those common currency plans.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for, well, global stability? You've got this intense rhetoric flying around. You have that anonymous source adding the conditionality, the only if trigger for the tariffs. It raises a really important question, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
How are these major global players actually going to navigate their economic policies going forward? And maybe more importantly for people listening, what's the real-world impact likely to be? On trade, on currency markets, especially if these sort of lines in the sand actually get crossed. How do you think this whole situation might play out for the global economy?
Definitely something to keep watching. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what is undeniably a crucial topic right now.